Welcome to another edition of Talk City Greensboro, produced by GTN, featuring interviews and events happening around town. It's an easy way to stay in the know while you're on the go. Subscribe to Talk City on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or SoundCloud so you can keep up with what's going on in Greensboro City government. I'm your host, Josh Johnson, and with me today, as always, my co-host, my friend, Rosemary Flyben.
So happy to be here. Thank you
I'm glad
so
you're
much.
here.
You know, February 1 is an important day in Greensboro. It marks the day 4 North Carolina A&T students walked to the Woolworths in downtown Greensboro, and they took a stand for civil rights by sitting down at the counter. That lunch counter is now part of the International Civil Rights Center and Museum and stands in the same place it did 62 years ago. John Swaine is the CEO, and he is here with us today. Hello, how are you?
Hey, Mr. Swaine, thanks for coming.
Thank you both for inviting me today.
Always love to have you. Love to hear
great to
your
have
stories.
you.
You've been there longer than anyone who is there now, and have seen it from the very beginning. We were just talking about that first day, and
Yes.
take it back because I know a lot of listeners will remember. You know, the museum opened 12 years ago. It was a big snowstorm in Greensboro, and we had media from all over the country here, and this was such an anticipated day. We've been waiting for this museum to open for so long. We're so excited, and the snow was not going to stop it.
So our motto is the show goes on.
There you go.
It did.
And it did.
And it was, I almost think that just made it was like reverence to it, you know? It was just,
yes.
it was a beautiful coming together and, you know, having to work even harder to make it happen, which I think is sort of perfect, right?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean,
Yeah.
to make that happen. So I want to know how for you, how does it feel, you know, having been there as long as you have and from the very beginning and knowing all the history to, you know, walk by that counter every day?
Every time I take someone into that space, I still get the goosebumps of what it must have felt like for those students to have approached that lunch counter February 1 of 1960. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for folks who step forward and change the way we live. And I constantly think about that. So the goosebumps still come when I'm talking about it. There are places you want to tear up just reflecting back 62 years ago. It was kind of nice to have Mr. Joseph McNeil to walk into the museum on February 1. I was standing downstairs and the door pops open and it kind of caught me off guard, but there he was, and it was just so nice to see him.
Yeah. I love how you say that, you know, people to step up to change the world.
Absolutely.
And that really, I mean, that's what it was.
Absolutely.
And did.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So over 12 years, what are some of the changes that you've seen there?
There have been a lot of changes. And we've listened to the community when they've asked about being able to access the museum at different times during the day, early in the morning, later in the evenings. We've laid out brand new virtual tours. We've laid out new interactive tours, seated tours. So COVID has forced us to do things very differently.
Of course.
That's a good thing for me because I love change. Love change.
Well, that's lucky then, right?
That's right.
No 2 days are the same at the Civil Rights Museum. So people who walk in, you don't know a thing about who they are until they open up their mouths and tell you their stories. And so it's an interesting place to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's stories there, you know, that you learn about when you're there, but people bring their own stories in, right?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
And that's what's kind of magical. I mean, it's evolving. It's always changing, and that's life.
Absolutely. And I love seeing our young people learn. But my favorite visitors are grandparents and grandchildren. To see grandparents walk through the doors, we don't have to do much because the grandparents can tell their kids everything. And most of them will write back and they'll say, hey, after we left the museum, we went down the street and had lunch, and the conversations were just out of this world. But it takes that transfer of knowledge, passing of the torch. And I think it's things like that understanding that's going to help us build a better community and a better civil rights city. My hopes for this city is that we are going to be a civil rights city.
I love that. So what has the community's response been to the museum over the years, and kind of how has that changed?
One of the nicer things of me being in place since October of 2009 is to watch the evolution of the museum. Listen to people talk about when they first sat at an F.W. Woolworth lunch counter. We started hosting some conversations in the street last spring. And I was very impressed by the thoughtful comments that people who lived here, I wanted to know where that energy comes from. What is it that you miss about Greensboro when you're away? What's your hope when you get back? What do you want to see differently? And I had some interns that were with us for about 3 months, and they did a lot of note taking. But as I sat down and read the comments, the one thing that was loud and clear: people love this community. They love the notion of having a civil rights museum in this city that continuously reminds us of who we were as a people, but who we can be going forward into the future. We are not a history museum. We are a museum about the future, and we want to recognize the past and use that as our base, but we want to talk about what do we owe one another as promised to us in the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution when we talk about being equals in society. So we want to open those conversations up and get people really thinking. And it's kind of nice to see the changes taking place as you're talking to them, and they start thinking, oh, this is a resource that I can refer back to.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
lots of changes.
Those are great statements. One, that it is continuing to evolve, and that it's not a history museum. It's
Yes.
so much more
Yes.
than that. So
Well, museums are the keepers of memory.
that's true. That's true.
And we have a lot of history there.
You do.
But we take it and transition it to the future.
to where we're going, it's great. So what are some of the things happening at the museum this spring?
This spring, we're working on a multi-panel exhibit. We're going to be hosting conversations in the street again this year. People have already been asking, thinking, do you want to sit outside in the cold? But we're looking forward to that. There will be pizza and beverages with it. But the most exciting thing for me is we're going to be hosting our gala for the first time ever on July 25th. That has been my hope for a long, long time. I know Skip is going to kill me. So anyways, we're looking forward to hosting that event. And a lot of our participants in programs like that, they can be susceptible to icy conditions and snow and fall and that type of thing.
And February 1 is a difficult time for that.
February 1 is a very challenging time.
Yeah,
it was
weather-wise.
then. It was 62 years ago.
And still today.
Still is today, but we're going to find a way to kind of grease the skid a little bit and make it a little bit more palatable. But I'm looking forward to hosting this event and seeing people be able to come out if they have to be in a wheelchair or whatever. But not worrying about someone slipping and falling to try to come to a gala when it's really, really cold later in the evenings. So now we just have to worry about thunderstorms.
That's all right. We don't know. We're not going to speak that word. But it's important that people know, why July 25th? Because that is an important day.
That is a very important day. That was the actual day that the lunch counter was integrated, finally. I don't think it would have taken 6 months to achieve this if we had focused on our founding document, the 14th Amendment. When the 14th Amendment guarantees full and equal protections under the laws for all persons who are born or naturalized in this country, that means that we treat each other as equals in society. So that is a wonderful day to really celebrate. We integrated it. That's the day you have your big party and celebrate. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably feel very different July as opposed to freezing to death in February. But, there's always the struggle thing.
Yeah,
it's a good reason to celebrate. I know there's all kinds of programs, and as you said, you've evolved on time of day that you're open and the types of program.
Yes.
So, what are the ways to experience the museum, and what do you like best?
I like the staff best.
They are good answer.
Absolutely.
They are They are the hardest working people that I've ever seen. And they often ask me to lighten up a little bit. But, if you want success, you got to step into it and just really want to succeed. And I love every aspect of the museum because it's a teaching institution. We're a teaching landmark. Hopefully, we're going to be soon a National Historic Landmark designated. I'm working on that application now. And a World Heritage Inscribed institution. We would then be one of the 25 in the country and not just 24. But I love every aspect of this institution. That's why it's almost like not working. But it's where do you need to be? Do it. Achieve, and then go to your regular job at 6 o'clock. I'm doing the stuff I should have been doing all day long. But,
and so you can go to the museum that you can go virtually. You can go.
Yes,
you can walk around. You can go with a guide. You can
tour.
watch a
That's
video.
Absolutely.
There are kind of some different ways to actually see it and to get the most out of it.
COVID caused us to rethink our entire operations. And I think I like the changes that we put in place. Many of those changes were led by Professor Harris and our senior interpreters. So people can pick and choose their docent and get a really nice experience in the comfort of their homes, or come down to the museum and experience it as well.
Yeah, there is something about coming to the museum.
Yes.
And
Yes, there
walking in
is.
that space.
Yes. You still feel it.
You feel it.
every time
Yeah.
you walk through the door.
I love that.
Yep, that's true.
You can plan your visit to the museum or find out more about the programming by going to the website. It is sitinmovement.org. Thank you so much for your time today. Loved having you.
Thank you all for inviting me.
It was our pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Swaine. Stay tuned in weekly by subscribing to Talk City Greensboro on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And don't forget, you can download Talk City from SoundCloud.
That's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in to Talk City. Be sure to watch GTN, your official source for news and information about the city of Greensboro. GTN is available on Spectrum Channel 13
AT&T UVerse Channel 99.
and North State Channel 31.
GTN also streams live on Roku and the city's website
At greensboro-nc.gov.
Take care.